whether or not to start a podcast. How is it going to help your business? What's the benefits of it? I have Mafe Salazar, a podcast manager, to share her tips and tricks. And she is a strong advocate of using podcasting to promote your business and use it as a financial asset. So, hola, Mafe. Thank you so much for being here
Hola,
today.
whoever's listening. My name is Mafe Salazar, and I am originally from Caracas, Venezuela, but I moved to Vancouver, Canada 11 years ago, or I guess 10 and a half years ago. It's been a while since I've been living here. And I am a podcast manager, a podcast producer, and I have my own podcast from tourist to local. And basically, what I do is just I help entrepreneurs launch and grow podcasts that people would actually want to listen to, because I am a believer that we all have a story to tell and that all of our stories have some sort of like transformation that just made us who we are today. And I feel like there's power in your story. So that's why um, I'm so passionate about podcasting and telling your story basically.
Yeah, I love that because I will say that's one of the things that I am finding out as, uh, a podcaster. How did you get into podcasting? What is it that like drew you to start a podcast?
Well, it was COVID. So I think I started this podcast probably around 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, but then it used to be called the Spanglish Show. Like that was the first like iteration of my podcast, and I started that as a way to test and also to show to like potential clients my portfolio and what I could do like as a podcast manager, and then again like also as a way to test like different strategies and things and see what was working and what was not in like the
Mm-hmm.
podcasting space. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's what kind of like snowballed into me like becoming a podcast manager, because before I was offering virtual assistant services, so I was doing a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of everything. And I remember one of my clients was like, actually, do you want to give it a try and then like start producing my podcast? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I learned so much. And yeah, that again, like that kind of snowball into me being like becoming like a full-time podcast manager.
What is it that a producer does? Like how do they help you with your podcast?
Well, there are many ways that I help people. Like the most common one is just basically they record their podcast episodes, they forget about it, and they just give it to me so I can edit, produce clips for social media. I can also, like, one of the things that I really like doing, and that's part of like one of the packages that I obviously offer, is
Mm-hmm.
strategy. So yes, you are the one that's like constantly working on your podcast, but if there's someone else that is looking at it like from I like looking at it from like a as in like a bird's eye view, like from the very like top, and see like all the parts, because like you as a host, um obviously you have a lot of emotion like tied to your
Mm-hmm.
podcast
Mm-hmm.
because you're telling your story, you're real vulnerable and all that things, that sometimes you're just so into your podcast that it's really hard for you to step back and see like the whole picture
Mm-hmm.
of what it is that you're doing with your podcast. And it obviously depends on the goal that you have for said podcast.
Yes. How can someone figure out where their goals are? Does it?
Well, this is honestly like this is one of the questions that most people ask. Is like I talk. I like to talk, so I should probably have a podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
spoiler alert, you shouldn't. Just because you can talk, you just doesn't mean that you should have a podcast. Because what most people don't realize is the amount of work and production
Mm-hmm.
that a podcast takes, especially if you have guests on your show. When starting a podcast, the thing to have present is that your podcast can evolve, and it's supposed to
Mm-hmm.
evolve as you evolve, because again like it's your story, your experiences are what are shaping your journey, right? It all goes down to the foundation of your podcast, the why of your podcast, your core value, like what is it that you want to do. Like the basic thing that you have to like ask yourself is like, what do I want people to take away from this? What is the feeling that I
Mm-hmm.
want people to have out of this? And again, like what's the goal of the podcast in my business, right? Like, do
Mm-hmm.
I want to use this because for me, like podcasting is a way to build trust because
Mm-hmm.
people are choosing to spend 20, 30, 40 minutes with you on their ears, either with you
Mm-hmm.
or like someone else on their ears, right? They are taking you with them like on their day, right? So they are
Yeah.
choosing you for a reason. And there's an angle that you are showcasing that is what people want to listen to.
One of the things that new podcasters that want to use this as um, part of their, I guess funneling it to their business, how they can use podcasting for their business.
So many ways that you can use your podcast for your business, because again, like it's a way to build trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then it goes back to what do you want people to do. So do you want people to invest in your courses? Do you want people to buy like something like a specific product that you're selling? Like those are like some things that you have to consider when you're launching a podcast, especially if it's a business, like if it's a podcast that's going to be an asset for your business and not something that you're going to treat as a hobby, which is what happened with me. And I believe with, like what you were saying in the beginning, like
Mm-hmm.
your podcast in the beginning and even my podcast in the beginning, it was a way, it was a hobby for me. Yes, it was a portfolio, but I wasn't really taking like I wasn't really including any call to actions that were very specific as to how to work with me, what it is that I want, like what's the angle that I wanna touch, depending on like the whatever offer I am selling in that moment at that point in time, right? So
Uh-huh.
now I feel that I am more mindful when I am planning my episodes. I feel that I am more mindful when I am reaching out to guests
Mm-hmm.
because that is gonna it's going to like synchronize basically with the kind of offers I am promoting. So that's how
Mm-hmm.
I am like that is one way of monetizing a podcast, just like what's it called? Advertise your own offers, right? And then again, like you're advertising your own offers, and at the same time, you're building trust with the listener, with someone that's like listening to you.
I did that mistake off the bat as well when I first started getting like interviews. I think I was part of that like scarcity mindset. I'm just gonna like get whoever says yes to being on my
Yeah.
podcast because it was such a new podcast that did not align with what I'm trying to do. Like, what are your tips to like make sure that episodes are, aligned with your why and your goals?
I feel like having really clear questions and having and being very clear on the angle that you want to touch with them, because
Mm-hmm.
they're a bank of knowledge, right? Like they can have like so many different angles. Like I can sit here and talk to you about like not only how a podcast can be a financial asset, but like why podcasting is so powerful or why storytelling like resonates with so many people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to keep in mind, like as the host, you have to keep in mind like asking the questions that are aligned with your why, right? Like your
Mm-hmm.
why is you want to help people in grow their business in real estate investing. So how does that look like? How does this translate to your guests? Like how can you weave that in when you're talking to your guests or in the questions that you're asking?
Mm-hmm. What would your advice be to that person?
Most people think that podcasting is just recording something on your phone, recording something on your computer, uploading it, and that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, it can be like that, but also like you have to edit your episodes for clarity. You have
Mm-hmm.
to you have to be conscious of the amount of work that producing a podcast is, because it's not only like recording is a very very small part of it, and then yes, you have to be present, yes, you have to like outline the episodes, but then before and after that recording space that you only take 20, 30, 40, 1 hour per
Mm-hmm.
episode, like however long you want their episodes to be, you have to be really mindful about how you plan those episodes and how you plan those episodes that are going to weave into your business, right? Because before that recording, there comes the planning of the episode. What do you want to talk about on that episode, that
Mm-hmm.
and how is that going to relate to the transformation that you want to offer in your podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you record, you have to edit. You have to, if you have intro, outro, you have to mix those elements into your podcast. If it's a video podcast, then you have to do like all the other elements. And then if it's a video podcast that you're uploading on YouTube, my recommendation is usually to have like different titles, just because
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is like a completely different beast. But yeah, like if you're just starting, I would say like the thing that you have to focus on the most is the core of your podcast. What do you want people to know? What do you want people to take away? And then go from there. Because if you have that really defined at the beginning of your podcasting journey, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
so much easier. It's going to be so much easier. It's a lot, but it also can be, and this is what I like about podcasting, that it can be like your main source of content, because
Mm-hmm.
one podcast episode you can turn into so many pieces of content. Like there is so much juice on like repurposing the podcast episode. Let's list like a couple of ways that you can repurpose this
Mm-hmm.
podcast episode, and it only took you well, we've been here for 27 minutes is what it says on the
Mm-hmm.
timer, but
Mm-hmm.
it took you like 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, like however long it
Yeah.
was. But from this hour that we're going to be talking about, you can have one blog post or maybe two blog posts. So
Mm-hmm.
that's two pieces of content out of 1 hour. Like, yes, you have to invest like time creating these like blog posts or these
Mm-hmm.
outlines, but you have the foundation now. Then you're going to have clips for your social media. You can probably have 3 4 clips for your social media, and that's 4 days worth of content. So
Mm-hmm.
that's 6 pieces of content. If you have TikTok, then you can repurpose like these videos, like these little clips into TikTok
Mm-hmm.
videos. YouTube Shorts, like the same thing. Just because you sat down, talked to someone else for an hour, go back to the transcript and look at quotes that you can pull from the episode, and then just have a carousel going. Instagram
Mm-hmm.
captions, you can just do like a b-roll over something, but then you have like your Instagram caption or something really powerful that was said on the episode. So I think that yes, it is a lot of work, but also like the ROI is really high, because you get like
Mm-hmm.
all these things from just like 1 hour of recording.
What things I can do to kind of like boost the downloads?
You want to find places where people that you want to listen to your podcast to be, right? Like, where are those people hanging out? Is it on Facebook groups? Is it on communities, like co-working communities? I'm part of a couple of like free communities, and I use
Mm-hmm.
those communities to promote my podcast. This is, I think, this is how I found you. I
Mm-hmm.
found out that you were looking for guests through
Mm-hmm.
Latinas in podcasting.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's one way of doing it. Just go to those communities and then just market yourself, make sure that you're promoting your podcast. And then also, like, one of the things that people sometimes they forget to mention on their episode is just to ask listeners for a favor. Ask them like for something very specific, say mid episode, being like, take a screenshot of this episode, like if you're listening to this, like, do
Yeah.
this right now.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you're
Do it right
listening
now.
to this episode, and then yeah, exactly, if you're listening to this episode and you have time, take a screenshot and share this on your social media, and tell me like what has been your biggest takeaway from this. Like find ways to weave in like call to actions that are
Mm-hmm.
gonna be like small, because and
Yeah.
then there's a point in the episode where they're gonna be like invested in all that stuff, so it's gonna be easier for them to want to share this with other people. And it doesn't have to be like sharing on social. You can just ask them to share with one person that they really think that this is gonna resonate with them.
I always thought that you needed to have like at least an hour or something like that.
I don't think that your podcast should be an hour, or I don't think your podcast should be like a specific length amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
because again, like, one, this is something that you can refine and that you will find as like the more episodes you record. Literally have bullet points of the things that I want to talk about, and then like the things that I really have specific words for are the call to actions, because those are the most important things on my episodes. Because again, like, now that I am transitioning into full-time entrepreneurship with podcast
Yeah.
management, I want people to know about my services. I want people to know exactly what it is that I do, and I want people to discover my podcast, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's the, like, word of mouth is one of the most, like, to this day, even like one of the most powerful ways that people that people find podcasts.
You mentioned that you provide some services for those that might be interested. Like, what kind of services do you provide and where can they find you?
Well, my favorite service to provide is podcast launch because
Mm-hmm.
I like to call it the launch lab experience because I just love seeing everything go from idea and then seeing the face of my clients when their podcast or like when their first episode or their trailer is published is
Mm-hmm.
glorious. And I recently changed it. It used to be that I produced the trailer in 3 episodes, but now I really find that producing at least like 12 episodes, which is going to be like 3 months worth of content, is what really going to grow your podcast, especially like if you want to use it like as part of your business. And then
Mm-hmm.
like 3 months or like 12 episodes, it's really like it really makes the difference. So that's one of my like the services that I love to offer, just the
Mm-hmm.
podcast launch. And then the other ones that I offer are podcast management services, from just editing your episodes and then you do everything else, from full service, like you record your podcast, or like you're obviously in charge of planning and everything, but we go
Mm-hmm.
over strategy, but then you sit down, record, and kind of like forget about it. Then you send me your podcast and I do everything else. I publish your episodes and then I create the clips and everything for you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the ways that I can work together. And then as far as free offers, I have a free Notion template that takes you and gives you the step by step of how to launch your own podcast in 5 weeks and how to do it mindfully. So I will give
Yeah.
you a link so that you can give to your listeners.
That could have saved me a lot of time, a whole year to figure, that if I would have just taken like a little bit of time working with somebody or whatever to figure that out
Yeah.
from. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your tips and expertise.
No
Okay.
problem. And then one more thing that I offer that I